The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this PSR orientation for the 2018 academic year. I'm April Peters-Hawkins, immediate past president for UCEA, and I'm joined by my colleague. I'll let her introduce herself. We have two other folks that may or may not join the call from the executive committee, but we wanted to go ahead and get started and honor your time. So, Mari, would you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Thank you, April. Hi, everyone. This is Mariela Rodriguez, current president of UCEA. Thanks for joining us this morning.
So we would like to go through some slides with you to talk to you a little bit about the roles and responsibilities of the PSRs, to talk a little bit more about the organization, UCEA, and then to give you a chance to answer some questions. So, Stephanie, do you have the slides? I saw them disappear. So we're just going to wait until we get those back up so we can go through those with everyone.
There we go.
And I see Tara has joined us. I'm not sure the extent to which you're able to talk, Tara, so we've also divvied your slides.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So if you want to jump in when you're able, fine. If not, that's fine too.
Yep. Nope, that's fine. Sorry, everybody, that I'm late.
No problem. So Stephanie, can you advance to the next slide? So basically, our agenda for today is just the following. We're going to give you an overview of UCEA as an organization. We're going to talk to you about what it means to be a Plenum representative. We'll also speak to you about some of the resources that UCEA has available to member institutions and some of the initiatives that we've been engaged in over the past several years. And then importantly for you, we'll talk about what you can expect at the November Plenum meeting, including dates and logistics, as well as other detail. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. So we have a full agenda, and we'll try to keep it as brief as we can, but we want to also be as detailed as possible. Okay. Stephanie, would you please go to the next slide? So in terms of who we are, as an organization, UCEA has these four components, really, that help us to frame who we are as an organization. And so we have a couple of things that I think are really important to thinking about UCEA at the core there, right? So members, our member institutions, organizationally as well as the individuals who represent those institutions are very important to the work of UCEA. Our vision as an organization, the goals that we embrace and embody as an organization, and then finally the values that we espouse as an organization make up who we are organizationally. Okay, we can go to the next slide. The next part of this, we'll break these down individually, right? So the components of who we are, we'll talk about individually. So the first part of this concept of who we are has to do most importantly with members. So UCEA is a consortium of nearly 100 research and doctoral granting institutions, advancing the preparation and practice of educational leaders for the benefits of schools and for children. You should know that we have a growing international membership interest. So we have most of our member institutions are national organizations, national universities, but located here in the U.S. But we do have a growing interest from the international community, and we have begun to develop some MOUs with related international educational leadership networks. Mariela might talk about this a little bit later, or maybe Tara, I guess, because with respect to programming for November's convention, but we often have a section of the programming that's dedicated to thinking about our international partners and colleagues in other contexts. And so that's important to think about in terms of who we are as well. Okay, our next slide. So our next slide has to do with our vision. And so this is very important because our vision really determines the course of action that we take in any given year. And so our vision is really that UCEA is a community of scholars and that we are committed to the improvement of leadership and policy that supports learning and development of all children. So as an organization, UCEA initiates and leads educational reform efforts through high-quality research and preparation programs. UCEA institutions work collaboratively with schools and with educational agencies to positively influence local, state, and national educational policy. And UCEA constantly questions and reevaluates its practices and beliefs to ensure that we are really engaged in effectiveness and relevance to the field.
So I have my paper with me and I'm writing it all down.
Tara, is this a good time to turn things over to you?
The challenge I have is that I don't have my computer with me to have the full slides.
Okay.
So I can, yeah, I'm so
That's
sorry.
fine. So that's fine.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'll weigh in where I can, but. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So then I'll take the next two slides and then I'll turn it over to Mariela.
Okay.
So the next slide has to do with values. And so with respect to our values, very much related to our vision is the notion of learning and social development for all children. So all the work that we do, ultimately, we are thinking about how we improve the quality of education, the quality of life, the quality of learning for children. We value the contribution of educational leaders to the success of children. We value systematic inquiry that is relevant, integral, and essential to the success of children, to the success of schools, and to the success of school leaders who serve those children. And then we value quality and excellence in the preparation of school leaders and professors. We value collaboration with schools and other educational and service agencies and professional organizations, which many of our member institutions are engaged in. And then we value professional community, collegiality, and respect for diverse perspectives. We value educational policy that positively supports learning and development of all children. And we value diversity, equity, and social justice in all educational organizations. And we hope that you have seen already in your engagement with UCEA and that you will continue to see as you continue to engage evidence of these values, according to the things that I've just said, really lived out in the research that is shared and the activities that the organization and the member institutions engage in. And then finally, if we could go to the next slide. Our goals. And so we have several goals as an organization. One, to promote, sponsor, and disseminate research on the essential problems of schooling and leadership practice. We also have as a goal to improve the preparation and professional development of educational leaders and professors. And finally, we have as a goal to positively influence local, state, and national educational policy. And so we're going to shift our conversation to speaking a little bit about PSR roles and responsibilities in light of thinking about who we are, what I've said about who we are as an institution. Mari?
Thank you, April. Yes, hi, everyone. So we're going to divide this section into three key areas regarding your roles and responsibilities as a plenum session representative. We're going to be taking a look at the legal role, the linkage role between you and your institution and UCEA, and then, of course, your leadership role. So let's go ahead and begin with the legal role. On our next slide, please. So first of all, of course, congratulations on serving on this key role. Obviously, being familiar with UCEA governance, that those of us here on the call, all began as PSRs for our respective institutions at one point in time. And then it's from the plenum session representatives that members are elected to the executive committee and then forward. So we're excited to have you as the future of UCEA. When we take a look at the legal role, Obviously, the first key issue that we're going to be covering soon, and you'll be receiving emails with that and at the plenum meeting, are the elections. So currently a nominations committee is putting together the ballot for us regarding those persons who will be running for executive committee. And then from within the existing executive committee, there will be some persons running for president. And so as a plenum session representative, you bring the vote from your faculty to the plenum, or if you are asked to do it via email ahead of the convention, but you would receive such instructions from headquarters. And so the key to remember is that each of the persons who is running is going to be having a YouTube interview with UCEA headquarters staff, in which they will outline their goals, they will outline their vision for the year of service on the executive committee. And so we would invite you then to share that link with your faculty so that they may also listen in and weigh in. Because it's good for you to get information from your faculty members as to which vote you will cast when you come to plenum on behalf of your institution. More information, of course, can also be found on the bylaws. That's our next area there that you see on the second line. And so issues of governance and finance. So at the plenum meeting, you know, it's a long meeting, but it's because we cover so much important information. You'll be looking at a review of our annual finances as an organization, our investments. You'll be able to take a look then at any decisions that would need to be made regarding governance. And so your role is key. You'll be receiving some materials prior to arriving at the plenum, so we encourage you to take a look at those before arrival. And that way you'll be able to engage in governance in an effective way. The third line you see there, of course, are our annual budgets. So that's definitely something that you will be voting on to consider reviewing and approving. And of course, there may be some updates with that annual budget. UCEA has an external accountant who takes a look at these aspects and will provide a very nice portfolio for you to be able to take a look at while you are at plenum. Then you will also be asked, our fourth line there, you will also be asked to vote on new members. So you'll be receiving either email information about that or we'll be voting at plenum regarding institutions who are ready to join UCEA and want to come on board. And so you'll be able to review what the EC would have already conducted as a report and then moving forward. Why don't we move on to the linkage role? Thank you, Stephanie. So with the linkage role, we have three key areas here. The first one, of course, being the program. And so you then are the liaison between your institutional faculty and graduate students and what you bring to UCEA, and then vice versa. What you would gain at the plenum then, you would return and report to your faculty, to your students. The goal of having this type of interactions, type of liaison, is to ensure that there's always a voice at the table from our member institutions. We also, of course, want to hear about the great things that you're doing. So there will be opportunities during the plenum for you to be able to share some of the great initiatives that are happening. Because as April mentioned to us earlier, we all are dedicated to the unified vision of high quality principal preparation. And so we look forward to hearing about what you're doing. Obviously then, the second line there with administration is you need to maintain a key role with the chair, your department chair, your dean, and your provost. And so the idea there is that as a PSR, having then to ask the department chair and your dean for support for travel to the plenum, and obviously, you know, to the convention, but having them understand the important role that you will play, why you need to actually attend the plenum, and why they should support you know, your travel in that effort. And then there may be times when UCEA may ask you to collect certain data or information, etc., to report back. And so, of course, being in touch with your chair, dean, and provost about that. Other aspects in which you'll need to contact your chair, dean, and possibly provost would be when supporting some of our graduate student initiatives, like the Barbara Jackson Scholars, the Clark Scholars, the Policy Scholars. And so in that aspect, students, we always seek to have students be supported with their travel as related to these honors. And so you will often have to go to your chair and to your dean to seek that support. And then also the third line there is your external partners. Each of you then at your respective institutions has your school district connections with the university, and of course your own departments of education, as well as other organizations within your city and within your state who prove helpful partners. And so it's always good for you to consider representing UCEA when you are at these functions, at these meetings, and always possibly sharing the good work that we do through our website, through some of our reports and other papers that would be found there. Let's go ahead and move then to the third role. So of course, then this is the leadership role. And so here, when we consider the first line, program improvement, we are looking at individual members within each of our institutions, and obviously how these represent the collective organization. As April mentioned at the beginning, we are a consortium of almost 100 institutions, national and international, dedicated to high quality principal preparation. And so when it comes to program improvement, UCEA will have a variety of initiatives throughout the year that you might like to get involved with. And so stay tuned for those. UCEA as a whole, of course, the second line there, with information gathering and information sharing. We see this consortium as a way to bring varied institutions together, but to be able to say, here's what we are doing separately, but here's how it meets the collective goal of high quality preparation. And so at different times throughout the year, you may be asked from headquarters or from our executive committee members to gather some data from your institutions and then send that back, and then the sharing of information would return to you as well. And so key aspects there would be looking at some end of semester surveys, etc., that you may be asked to conduct. The third line talks about professional learning. And so this is, of course, the annual convention being our key come together moment. We're excited to see you all in Houston and thank our President-elect Tara Vincent Chambers and her committee for putting together a spectacular program. I hope you've had a chance to see the draft program that's online at ucea.org and are able to see that we've got a great lineup. So thank you to Tara and her team. And so that convention then will be a great time for us to come together and continue our professional learning. In addition to that, UCEA has a variety of other opportunities. Something key that's happening now is the professional learning communities, which engages several of our member institutions, and some of you may be parts of that. And so you will see that there'll be different times throughout the year that you'll be able to get involved and continue your own learning. And then the last line, when it comes to networking, well, obviously at the regional, national, and international level, UCEA is present at each of those levels in many organizations and bringing our role to the table. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. All right. And please, at any time, if you wish to post a question, you can type something into the chat box, and us as organizers, we are able to see that and could possibly respond to that question.
So do you want me to jump in here?
That would be great.
Okay. So this slide talks a lot about how you can get the most out of being a Plenum representative. So the first thing that you should know is that the role of Plenum rep is a 3-year commitment. And that seems like a long time in some senses, but it really is a great responsibility, but a great opportunity as well. A number of other things are part of sort of what you should think about in terms of getting the most out of being a plenum rep. You get a lot of continuity. You know, this notion of the 3-year commitment gives us continuity in terms of organizational knowledge. It gives you that as the plenum rep. It gives your organization that as well. And then it gives us that in terms of your involvement. You know, you get an opportunity to participate in ongoing initiatives. There are a number of initiatives that we'll talk about a little bit later in this talk that UCEA has been involved in and is involved in, and being a plenum rep gives you an opportunity to become involved in those kinds of initiatives as well. The other thing is that enhancing research, right? And so we have a number of opportunities to participate in research initiatives that are at the behest of either external organizations or within our organization based on our values and our vision, things that we think are important for the field to know. And oftentimes, plenum reps are at the core of helping us to develop, to engage in that research. So that's an important opportunity. To expand publication outlets and grant involvement, it's very akin to the earlier point about enhancing research. So our collective knowledge, I always say, is more substantive than any individual knowledge. And so your participation as a plenum representative provides an opportunity to engage in expanded research, expanded opportunities for grants and publication outlets based on collaboration across the institution, across various colleagues within UCEA who are part of other member institutions, etc. It offers you an opportunity for leadership at the national level. Being a plenum rep is a leadership role, and we are a national organization, so your leadership role is part of a national organization, positions you in leadership at the national level. One thing I didn't say about the 3-year commitment is that we elect members of our executive committee from the plenary. And so serving on the plenum propels you to a space where potentially, if you're interested, you could serve as a part of the executive leadership of UCEA. And then from the EC, we elect our presidents. And so the leadership at the helm of the organization also actually comes from the plenum. So all of the presidents and past presidents and EC members have all been plenary representatives. And so it's an opportunity to get additional leadership experience at a national level. It also provides service opportunities in a broader context. So certainly you're thinking about the fact that this commitment is a service commitment to your organization and to the field. But then even at a more granular level within UCEA, we do things like we have institutions that are interested in becoming member institutions. And so we do site visits. And so we often ask beyond the executive committee if there are plenary representatives who'd like to go and visit a site and give us and report back in terms of the criteria that we use to evaluate institutions for membership and to give us some feedback on that. And so there are opportunities in a broader context beyond just sitting in the plenary session as you become more involved with UCEA. And, you know, you should think about it as service to a profession that absolutely needs your input, your experience, and your expertise, both as an individual researcher and scholar, and then also as a representative of your institution. Because while our member institutions have a number of things in common, there are a number of things that make us unique. And it's important for us as we frame our research and our thinking about leadership development, about social justice and equity, and about all of the things that we value and say are important to the work that we do in terms of research and policy and leadership, that we understand that from the varied perspectives of the individuals who represent the institutions that make up the consortium. And then finally, all of this leadership and experience and research can only help to contribute to the promotion and tenure that we're all seeking, right? And so if you are an untenured faculty member, please think about this as an opportunity to expand your network, to expand your opportunity for research and scholarship, and potentially for grants. But also, one of the things that I have told a number of folks who, when they are thinking about whether or not this is a commitment that they'd like to make, is that becoming a PSR elevates your own presence, and it also helps us to get to know you. And then you also have an opportunity to develop relationships and networking with people who ultimately might be asked to serve as your external reviewers, which is a very important component of the tenure and promotion process. So, there are a number of opportunities for you as a PSR to really make the most of. And so we hope that you are as excited about this commitment that you have agreed to undertake as we are about having you as new PSRs.
April, can I say something about that before we move to the next slide?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay, so first, everybody, I'm really sorry that I was late to the call. My husband is having surgery this morning. It was supposed to be this afternoon, and they moved it, and so I just got all discombobulated. But anyways, one of the things that I think is important for you all to know too, as I'm looking at the list of attendees, I'm noticing that there are a lot of assistant professors who are in this PSR role, which is actually very common for that to happen. And speaking from my own experience as a PSR, as a junior faculty member, it was an interesting experience to be a junior faculty member in my department, but playing this leadership role in this organization. And I really found that UCEA provided a lot of support to me as I went back to my own faculty and was pushing UCEA initiatives, or there were things that we needed to be doing as a program that we either weren't doing or weren't thinking about. Like, it really was an empowerment kind of thing to be able to say, well, I'm not just saying this as an assistant professor and nobody listens to me. I'm also saying this with the support of UCEA, and being able to have that backing and have the support of, April and Mariela and Bill and other people along the way. It was really helpful to me in my own personal career. So I want to encourage you, as much as, you're playing this important role, linking between your program and UCEA and all of these external partners and all of these things, please know that we're also here for you. So if there are things that we can do, to be more effective in your own department, please know that we're here for you and are willing to do that. So yeah, that's all.
I think, so I just realized that, Bill, are you there? I unmuted you.
Yes, I am here.
So sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay. Three computers later, I've
So good, then I don't know if I don't even remember where we are on the slides, but Bill, if you'd like to add something, or if you want to take
Sure. I think a couple of things that really struck me when, even though I'd been involved in UCA for many years, the amount of resources that are available in that linkage role. When you think about publications, newsletters, scholarship opportunities, networking opportunities, leadership improvement opportunities. We've used the Inspire survey for several years, and it's been great to have that access and use it in addition to our state requirements and CAPE requirements. There potentially a marketing set of a marketing initiative that may be coming forward that I think will be very helpful. So I think, even though I'd been involved in UCA as a Plenum rep, to come to really understand the full range of resources and then be a linkage for that was particularly helpful for me. The other thing that I found is not everybody fully understands what UCA is, particularly at the dean or provost level. And so doing a little bit more work to talk about how we are a consortium and a source for much professional development. And to some people's minds, they would see us as some type of accreditation entity, and we're not. So that's just one of the reflections of what I learned as a PSR rep. and then being very proactive at program meetings, almost coming in with a note or two about what's going on with UCA and putting it on our monthly agenda. I think that was very helpful as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all good advice. And for all of you who are on the call, probably all, if not most of us who, of the four of us, myself, Bill, Mariela, and Tara, I know I started out as a PSA as a junior faculty, and you could have never convinced me that I was going to be president of UCEA one day. I mean, you probably could have convinced me of that until the year before I decided to do it. And so I say that to say you never know where your leadership journey is going to take you from PSR up and out, right? There are other opportunities within and outside of UCEA. And so I would just say to be open, and not necessarily to be plotting your leadership trajectory, but just to be open to the opportunities, because there are so many of them. And you already have probably become familiar with people's research and maybe with people individually. But this PSR opportunity sort of catapults you into a different space where you can be known, your research can be known, your institution can be known. You are an advocate for UCEA to your institution, to your colleagues, as Bill said. And then you are also, you know, a scholar who may be seeking tenure promotion. And so this is an opportunity to get very connected to the organization that really focuses in on some of the scholarship and work that so many of us are doing in ways that can really help you professionally. So I would just say be open to all of that and ask questions. As a new PSR, I didn't even know what to ask or who to ask. And at some point we'll talk about Plenum partners, and that was a very helpful opportunity for me. But there are so many people around that will be so happy to help you and to talk to you. So please feel free to ask questions of colleagues that you see at the convention and in the plenum. People are really, really kind and have so much information to offer. I think if Bill, if you're up to it, would you mind doing the next slide? I feel like we just ran through and I didn't realize you were on the other side of things. So, and I looked, I said, oh, we can't let Bill go without saying something.
This is fine. So just to piggyback off of what you were just saying as well, one of the things that's always impressed me, and we discussed this, this is my first year on the EC, is how UCA and my involvement as a PSR, when we say people are very happy to help, I really believe that, and I think there's something distinctive about being active in UCA in the sense of building a sense of community and family even. As a result of these interactions, these are folks that, you know, I think all of us continue to interact with outside of UCA, and we very much look forward to returning every year. I look forward to sitting in the room for a day and a half, not just because of the governance issues and coming to learn, but because of the relationships that get built. So I think that's a really often understated but really appreciated aspect of the work. So the UCA web resources, as most of you may be aware, UCA sponsors 3 journals, the Journal of Cases in Ed Leadership, and we are the host here at University of South Florida. Education Administration Quarterly just moved to University of Utah, and the Journal of Research on Leadership Education, which just moved to University of Houston. And you have access as members to those journals, and you'll see in the UCA Connections when that comes out, there's always highlights of what's been published there, and certainly those are wonderful resources. There are also book series that do come out. There's a publication committee that vets and has had different processes to vet different books. Certainly the website, the UCA website, has a lot of resources. We've used modules that have been developed by UCA for classroom use, and that can be really very helpful, and regularly looking at updates on policy issues. I typically go to UCA as one of my first resources. The Inspire survey, I'd already mentioned that earlier. That's a survey that what's nice about it is there are ways in which your programs, assistant principal or principal prep program, as well as the superintendent prep program, there are ways in which you're able to use UCA resources to deliver the survey to students. UCA is able to do the analysis, report back to you. You're able to add your own individualized questions to it, so to customize it to your local needs. And that has been very helpful for us. We use the survey, and now we have longitudinal data over time because of that. And that's, we use that and look at that data every year in our meetings. We also have guides to principal prep program and approval and licensure that are very useful as well. And then different, as I'd already mentioned earlier, modules, a curriculum mapping guide, a prep program evaluation guide that has been built on years of work by UCA sponsored task force. I just think there are a huge amount of resources for folks to make use of, and I think that's one of the first things I did as a PSR rep, is really go through the UCA website to make myself a little better educated as to the broad range of resources that UCA has to offer.
Great. Other, yes, next slide. Bill, you want to take this one also?
All right.
And then I'll jump in with the second line, Bill, in just a bit. Or actually, you know what? Sorry. Can I go ahead and take the first two?
Please do.
Sorry.
I may have others, as I haven't prepared for this one.
Let me go in.
We can all jump in too. Yeah.
Because of the gap analysis. So on this slide, you're able to see the first two bullets actually go together. So UCA headquarters, amazing doctoral students and postdocs did a leadership research project last year in which they identified a gap analysis within the educational leadership research literature. And so with that, we were able to work with persons from Voices from the Field, which is the second line for phase 4. So those of you who might be new to UCA, we have now the 4th iteration of Voices from the Field. Began several years ago with 1,000 Voices from the Firing Line as a national research project in which different UCA members met with groups of principals and superintendents to ask about key questions in educational leadership. And so now, and several books and articles and manuscripts have been a result of that. And so now we're ready to introduce phase 4. So I'm thrilled to be part of that. I think I've been with Voices since phase 2, I think, and then had a co-edited book come out last year from Voices 3, and now we're starting 4. So we invite you, let me move to another screen here for a second that I've got, at UCA on the Friday, November 16th, session 154, the special session at 1:45 is going to be our discussion with Will Place and Julia Ballinger, who are joining me as co-coordinators of this effort. So we invite you to join us on Friday, November 16th, 1:45, session 154, to talk about the Voices Project and see if you or other colleagues might want to get involved on this research. And so I think it would be a great way to not only continue this effort that began over a decade ago, but looking at it now from a new lens in which we're using the gap analysis data. So on the third one, you're able to see the state ESSA analysis. This is something that UCEA did last year. And we were able to take a look at every state's, or at least we tried to look at every state's aspect of the Elementary Secondary Education Act and what they do, what are some key elements, and how do the role of school leaders play here. So do take a look online at that report. It's very in-depth. We also have, of course, with the Wallace Foundation, our preparation redesign project, and how several of your institutions, and maybe you or some of you are involved with program redesign. But then that's actually then, if we go down a little further, you see the UCEA Program Design Network. And so there were several institutions who weren't able to get in with the Wallace one. So as an EC, UCEA said, well, let's find some money and let's get people on board. And so we've got lots of other institutions who've been able to join us in a similar effort using improvement science. So Bill already talked about the Inspire, so I'm going to skip that one. And there's a design network. And then, of course, the thing I had mentioned already earlier, all of the opportunities for your graduate students. What's wonderful to see is that when you get to Plenum, you're going to get a report from the grad students committee, the grad student council about the summit. And you're going to see that every year, the number of attendees to the grad student summit increases. And that's just beautiful to see. So I can't wait to see what the number is going to be this year. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. April, you want to go ahead and talk about the Plenum arrival and such?
Sure, I can. And I want to stop for a second and just see if, well, I'll do that part. And then Tara, if you want to talk at some point about what we can expect from the actual convention, since this has been your baby with your team. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So in terms of Plenum itself, you all will arrive either very early Wednesday or Tuesday night, depending on where you're traveling from. But the Plenum will convene on November 14th at 12 o'clock, and then we will conclude that day at 5:30, and then we have another half day the next day. So the next day we will begin at 7:30 on the 15th, that Thursday, and then we'll conclude at 11:30, and then the convention itself will begin that Thursday afternoon. And so just a couple things about the Plenum itself, and then I'll stop and let Tara talk about the convention. But there are a couple things that you'll need to just know that you will either receive or need to have read before you get to the Plenum. So there's a policy manual that you should have received by now that has your roles and responsibilities as Plenum representatives. You'll get some headquarter updates. There'll be some things that we need to, make sure that some votes may be happening in terms of membership for institutions that have applied for membership and things like that, and any policy updates that have occurred or that are being suggested. I'm sorry, will be things that you need to have read and prepare for, so that you're ready to vote when the Plenum session convenes. And your vote, as has been mentioned earlier, should be representative of your the folks in your program at your institution. So this is why you get materials in advance, so that you can review them, that you can present them to your colleagues, you can find out what the will of the folks that you represent is, and then come and vote accordingly. What you see, well, let me say two other things, and then I'll let Tara speak about the convention. When you come to the Plenum, a couple things will happen. One thing that will happen that will be very helpful for you is that last bullet there, the Plenum partner that I mentioned earlier. Your Plenum partner is going to be somebody that you are placed with, you'll be seated with at the table when the Plenum convenes, and for both sessions of the Plenum. And that person is an experienced Plenum representative. They've served on the Plenum for a while, and they can give you just insights and tips about, what's going on, what's happening, who someone is, initiatives that may have carried over from year to year, and where we were with those things last year, and that kind of thing. So they're going to be a very good source of information for you. So don't be shy, ask questions. I will say this, my Plenum partner is still a Plenum representative, and she was so incredibly helpful to me as a new Plenum representative. She proudly boasts that, I can't remember the number, but several of her Plenum partners have gone on to become UCEA president. So so if you get her, watch out, you might become president one day. But very awesome people who are members of the Plenum, who are also often accomplished scholars in the field. So you might walk in the room and see someone's name that you've been that's like kind of your academic rock star, and then they're your Plenum partner, which is also very cool. And that relationship can extend beyond just the Plenum. So, you know, particularly if you have common research interests and things like that, it's an opportunity to again, do that networking. And then one of the things that will happen during the Plenum, and you'll get more information about this, is the executive committee is always interested in how we engage the Plenum, so that you don't feel like the meeting that we have during the Plenum is the only time that you have, you know, a charge, right, or a responsibility to the organization. We realize that there's work ongoing beyond the time that we meet and convene for our annual convention. And so we are always invested in hearing from Plenum members and engaging you, so that it's not just a sit and get. And so we are currently working to develop the ways in which during the Plenum we will engage the Plenum, and then how that might look post the convention. So you'll hear more about that as we get closer to the actual Plenum session. So I'll stop right there, and then I'll let our President-elect Tara Van Zant Chambers speak more about the convention and that beautiful logo that you see in the corner of the slide.
No problem. So I actually don't have a lot that I want to say, because I know we have a lot of PSR-oriented things to talk about this morning, but I just want to say that, you know, we've been working really hard. The planning committee consists of myself, obviously. Bradley Carpenter at the University of Houston is our kind of local person. We have Lolita Tabron, who's at the University of Denver, and Terrence Green, who's at the University of Texas. And then for the first time this year, we also added a graduate student to our planning committee. It was important to me to create kind of a more explicit connection with our graduate students. And so what better way to do that than have a graduate student on the planning committee? And so Andreen Castro, who is actually also at the University of Texas, has also been on the planning committee this year, and that has been really phenomenal. So we've been working all year trying to do things that make the content of the convention really great, but also the experience of the convention. So I'll just say a couple of things. On the substance side, one of the things that we're doing is creating some intentional theming in the convention, and you'll hear more about this in the weeks to come. But we're intentionally grouping a few sessions that are on similar topics and putting them in the same room back to back. So if you're someone who is interested in community engaged leadership or activism and leadership, I'm trying to think of some of the other theme cluster areas, you know that you can go and sit all day back to back and experience those sessions, and then each of those is going to be capped by a critical conversation, so that you can kind of continue the conversation on that topic intentionally in that way. So I'm really excited about that. And then let me give you one piece on the more kind of fun side, which is, oh, there's so many things. Oh, how about the banquet? I'm really excited to say that our banquet this year is going to be at NASA. It actually was reasonable in terms of cost, and so the banquet will be riding shuttles. It's not that far, actually, just about 25 minutes or so, out to the Johnson Space Center, and that is where the banquet will happen. We're going to have flight simulators that you can experience before dinner, hopefully. And just all kinds of really great things. We're going to also be honoring our hidden figures who were selected by, nominated by our UCEA community, and then selected by our Plenum and some other UCEA partners through a really intentional but difficult process. We'll be announcing those winners at the convention, at the banquet, and giving them their honor at that point. So lots of really great things. I know that you'll all be there, but please spread the word about how exciting things are going to be. And for sure encourage people to get banquet tickets because it's going to be a really special evening, I think. So I'll stop there. I could talk for a long time, but nobody wants to hear all that.
Of course we do. I think that might be our slides for the day. Is there anything else? Yeah, we have just questions and answers, right? So now's the time to open the floor to the participants on the call to see if any of you have questions for those of us on the executive committee that we can answer. So if everyone's muted, Stephanie, do we want to just do a acknowledge hands, or Madi, what do you think?
I think it might be better to open it up, because when I did ask earlier about having the chat box, I didn't see anybody type in and wonder if they're not able to.
Okay.
So could we possibly open the mic, Stephanie, to attendees? Thanks.
So does anyone have any questions or comments?
Well, I know how on the next slide it has our contact information, April, so maybe for questions later?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so if you do have questions that occur to you after this session, please, you see our contact information there, and you're welcome to follow up with us.
It looks like there may be a couple of questions under the questions tab.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, you have not received the policy manual yet. You should all be receiving it soon, so not to worry. If you haven't received it, then do email headquarters, but it's okay. Just hang in there with that. And can you have a copy of the Inspire survey? I believe there is a sample at ucea.org. Just go ahead and search for Inspire within our website, and there should be a sample there.
And related to the last question, there's a tab that says Handout
right
at the bottom. And if you click on that, that has the slides that we just went through today. Are there other questions? If there aren't any other questions, then let us thank you, first of all, for taking time out of your busy Friday before convention, where you're probably trying to get your presentations and papers all finalized, to join us on this orientation. And then also, let me just say that some of you I know by name, others I don't. And so if we haven't met, and that includes myself and the other members of the EC on the call, please feel welcome to come up to us at the convention and introduce yourselves. And we would just love to meet you and know you. We will be in the plenum meeting, so you'll have a chance to see us. And for sure you'll see Mariela and Tara, because they will likely be on the dais.
Oh man.
Past president, I get to go sit in the back.
They didn't tell me that. But yeah, let me just echo also what April said. I'm sorry, I'm having connection issues now, of course, but you know, we're really here for you. And you know, from my perspective, I don't think we're intimidating people, but then that's easy for us to say. Really, let me just, you know, encourage you to reach out to us anytime, email, phone, whatever is convenient. We really are here for you, and we don't want you to be sitting out there with questions or concerns, or, you know, no matter how small, like, oh, what time should I arrive on blah, 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 or if I, you know, like any kind of question, you know, like don't hesitate to ask us. That's what we're here for.
Right.
Any comments from any other members of the EC or further questions?
I just want to go ahead and say thank you as well. This is Mariela. And I'm going to be heading out of the call here because here at the grad school today, we have some 6 therapy dogs who are here.
Ooh.
And so we've got a house full of grad students here, so I'm going to be decking out over there.
Sounds good.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. And Bill, apologies again for not catching that earlier, but thank you for your extreme flexibility. What a wonderful EC member to just kind of hang in there until we saw that he actually was on the call.
That's nice, positive framing that I came in a little late, so my apologies, but it's my pleasure, and I look forward to meeting folks that I haven't yet met.
Yes.
And so again, any questions that you all have, I know all of us are more than happy to respond and look forward to seeing you in Houston.
Yes, come to H-Town. We can't wait. Okay, everybody. Well, we can end the call here. Thank you so much. Enjoy your Friday and enjoy your weekend, and we will see you in Houston.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.
Yes. Thank you so much, Stephanie. You're awesome.
Thanks, April. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Madi.
you all.
All right, signing off. Gonna go pet some dogs.
Yes.
All righty.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.